some time ago we started to see a lot of graffiti around town, and we basically have a choice. We could either ignore it and let these vandals, which is what they are, damage people's property. Very expensive to remove graffiti. And so Kathy Witt and I came up with an idea about a graffiti eradication program where the sheriff's department would assign somebody to go to the jail and get jail inmates, maybe 3 of them, pick them up. Home Depot provided a trailer and all of the equipment necessary to either paint over or scrub off or power wash, or in some cases sandblast graffiti. And this was after the police department has a gang resource group of officers who have been trained to recognize gang signs, and I'm told that only maybe 15% of the graffiti in Lexington has any great significance as far as gang activity is concerned. It's very impressive. Ron Watson, a deputy sheriff, has been in charge of it from the very beginning. And last year, in 2014, they removed over 38,000 graffiti sites in Lexington. Now, if you go to a lot of cities, they don't do anything. And all it does is increase, and then increase, and then increase. And pretty soon, it's, it's very depressing to people that live in a community. And I'm particularly proud of Lexington because our city and our sheriff's office have gotten pretty busy about dealing with this, and it's kind of a under the radar thing, and I'm so impressed with it, how it's turned out, that I want to talk about it a little bit today.
So where do we see most of the graffiti in Lexington?
Well, I don't have the foggiest idea because I don't get in the truck with Ron Watson and these jail inmates. All I know is that it's something that I would think that somebody with Channel 27 would want to look into. Yeah, so they can tell a much better story than I can tell.
So if someone has graffiti that they want to call to the attention, just call the sheriff's department?
That's right. I will give you a couple examples that Ron Watson was telling me about when I inquired about this. They have had to go up as high as 7 floors to remove graffiti. This was on the back of the government building. There's a fire escape that goes up, and they would put a letter on each floor. Then they had there was a big warehouse that was in town that the owner of the warehouse had just spent thousands of dollars to be repainted over graffiti. Well, of course, that just turns into another opportunity for these criminals called vandals to go graffiti up again, and they did. And so the owner of the warehouse called the sheriff's office, and they provided the paint, and that they covered 80. It's a huge warehouse, the back of a huge warehouse, and I'm trying to 80,000 square feet maybe. That would be a significant expense, so to hire somebody to do that. So then they have these people that on overpasses, bridges,
Yeah.
and the question is, how do they do that? Do they hang by their feet? Do they hang over and do it upside down on these overpasses on the interstate? And that wouldn't surprise me, because given that these guys are vandals, if they're hanging upside down and somehow they slipped, so long as they land on their head, they'll be okay, because they're hard-headed.
Yeah. Probably sue the warehouse if they're hanging off the warehouse. It's
Well,
like shaking the vending machine and having it fall on you. Then you could
Right.
sue. It's great.
So, at any rate, it's a neat program, and it's one that does a lot of good in our community because we stay on top of it.
And as I said, you can contact the Fayette County Sheriff's Department. Sheriff Kathy Whitner, folks, will be happy to talk to you about if you have any issues with graffiti in your neighborhood or in your buildings, whatever. They can tell you how you can become get part of that program. And I'm sure they love to take donations too. Who wants to have that? Sure.
Well, I don't know whether they can, to be honest
Maybe
with
not.
you, but they can get equipment given to them by the Home Depot,
Okay,
and
send
Home
your
Depot
donations
is
to me.
very, very supportive.
What do you got going on with it?
We have, by the way, our new victims assistance location in our office. We had an open house for that, and we invited you, and you were out of town and couldn't make it, but we put your name on the plaque as being a contributor on our appreciation plaque, because we bought a table and some mirrors and some paintings to the tune of about $250, but we've given you credit for that, although you haven't paid. So I'm just wanting to remind you that you owe us $250.
You know what? I'll give you a blank check. It's a good cause.
It is.
Well, not a blank check. No.
I don't want a blank check. That becomes a felony pretty quickly.
So tell me about that. Tell me a little bit about your program. You said that you had an open house. Talk
We
about that a
did.
little bit.
We have never had a place for victims of crime to basically wait to testify or to wait for a jury to return, except in the hallway outside of a courtroom, where they mostly had the wonderful opportunity to sit in the midst of a defendant's family who were mad as hell at them anyway.
Yeah.
And so this gave us an opportunity. The first floor of our building, the Berkeley building, gave us an opportunity to provide that kind of space for crime victims, and they've found that it's comfortable and it's not stressful like they would be if they're hanging out at the courthouse with all of the bad guys, with the bad guy and his family or her family. So it's we're real proud of it.
Yeah, up to this point, we've literally seen case after case where you would have a rape victim, and then the people that are testifying for the rapist, alibi, whatever, sitting right across, literally 2 seats down from your victim or your victim's families. We've seen it with homicide. It's crazy, and people mean mugging and
Does that mean making faces?
yeah, making faces, and you would often have to actually have police officers out there just sort of watching to make sure nothing happens. And this is great that you have this situation.
So our thank you appreciation plaque has your name on it.
Right, but you need. It's not
But your name is there basically on credit.
Gotcha.
Yeah. But we do have 3 blank little plaques that we could fill in if people chose to do something to assist the victims in our community. But we would ask them to, if they're going to donate something to, we prefer it in advance instead of me having to rag you on the radio.
So your office does so much with victims and your victims advocates. How important is that to you? I mean, as a prosecutor, when you deal with these people, I mean, is this something that you've chosen to do based on your experience? Is it your choice to do this, or how does this work?
Yeah. Crime victims frequently don't call it the criminal justice system. They call it the criminal system because they say there is no justice in it, and it's only set up to benefit criminals. And it's true. I mean, do you know that when somebody is convicted and getting ready to be sentenced, the defendant can speak to the judge all he wants. And did you know in Kentucky, a crime victim does not have the right to speak to the judge? They can only write him what we call a victim impact statement. I mean, it's just so offensive that this whole process appears only to be for the defendants and the crime victim.